Kessie, and welcome back to the Woman Health Podcast. For today's episode, we're joining with two special guests. We have Syafina and Syazwina. So, can you guys give a little introduction? Maybe who wants to start first?
Okay, okay, sure. Hi, I'm Syafina. I'm the co-founder of Demi Gadis, as well as the country director for the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network, BRUNEI, and I mainly work on topics related to women's empowerment, mental health, and youth empowerment. Okay, my name is Nurhamza Shazina, or you can call me Shazina, and I am a member of the Youth Empowerment Project, and I'm the marketing manager. And as a member of the Youth Empowerment Project, we solely focus on empowering the youth on topics such as this one.
Yay! Today's episode will be focusing on physical and sexual abuse, violence against women, domestic violence, and advice to the listeners. I do want to ask you guys, first of all, what comes to mind when it comes to sexual and physical abuse? Like, what do you guys imagine? What do you guys have in mind?
I guess, obviously, when you think of sexual abuse, it's kind of like um, a trigger warning to the audience, I assume.
Yeah.
Like what comes to mind is really much rape or forcing yourself upon someone, and that is a very, very difficult image to kind of like picture or even feel. But one thing that I've really learned through over the past years is a lot of these things, that physical and sexual abuse, are things that you don't really that victims usually don't even they're not even aware of. Yeah, they don't talk about it, and for starters, they don't even know it's physical abuse. Or, well, actually, physical abuse is easier to detect, but whereas sexual abuse, it sometimes is just like you don't even know it's sexual abuse. Sometimes you're just like, oh, okay, this person, it could be your partner, somebody loves me, and I'm like, okay, this is them doing this out of love, and I'm reciprocating out of love as well. But in your head, it's actually not what your body wants to willingly like give. And so it's really difficult for the victims to actually detect that, because a lot of it is overshadowed by like other feelings about, whatever your perpetrator, the other person in this context, is kind of what emotions they're evoking on you. So it's hard to detect, yeah.
And I also do want to add, last time we had surveys asking people about their sexual harassment experience, and half of them did mention that they weren't aware that they are being sexually harassed until they are further much into their adulthood. So I think that's really something that we should highlight as well. Like, we don't know.
What do you think of the narrative where people say it's a woman's fault when it comes to sexual and physical abuse?
I feel like it's very misogynistic to say
Yeah.
that. Like, it's much victim blaming. And yeah, it puts the fault on the on the what do you call that, on the person who is getting abused instead of the abuser.
Yeah. And sometimes there's also like a common term asking for it, which I totally disagree. Because, okay, for me personally, uh, we shouldn't blame it on the victims on what they want to or what they choose to wear. Instead of blaming on the person, we should blame on the abusers. Because I personally, when I wear my school uniform, I get stares also. But like my school uniform is like
Fully covered.
yeah, very
Yeah.
level. So this is very, for me it's not, it doesn't make any sense. What do you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. I feel like it's like an unfair thing to say, especially to the I mean, victim. To tell a victim like, oh, you're asking for it, is crazy to me. Nobody ever consciously asks that I want to be in this position where I don't like how I feel about myself. Nobody wants that. So to ask for the first question that you ask to like a victim is like, oh, what were you wearing? What were you doing? It's like, no, like, why don't you ask what was that person thinking? Because what I wear is something I can control, whereas what someone else does is not something I can control. And then it's really like, why is it my fault? Because like you said, people, even when they're like wearing hijab, they're covering up. It doesn't matter if you're covering up. It doesn't matter if you're like wearing like a skirt or whatever. It's if somebody is like, if somebody punya mindset is already set on like doing something bad, that's already there. I go out wearing whatever I want because I feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And for no one else. So why is it my fault that what I do to feel good about myself affects someone else's decision?
And I can mention that the trauma really can last for a very long time,
Yeah.
even with therapy.
Scared to speak up because first things first, who's gonna believe me instead of this guy who is in power? Who is gonna believe me when I am speaking about a family member? Because people naturally don't want to believe that something bad happens. And it's like, of course, it's very difficult to take in. That's why they prefer to not take it in and do the easy way, like, oh, it's her fault. And I think, it's really unfair, obviously, that we see macam, let's say there are certain cases of rape. I think in wherever it is, it's like it could be a father or an uncle, someone in the family sexually abusing female members of the family, and they were not able to speak up because oh, this person provides for me, I cannot say anything, and I'm scared of losing my life because this person has so much power over me. And then because in other people's eyes, these people are like, oh no, they're your caretakers, they wouldn't do that. So then that's why I guess people form this automatic empathy towards them. What we can do is change things that are in control of like what are in our control. So for example, I think for my part, at least what I know I can do from my position is I would want to do whatever I can to provide support for the victim to incorporate like their lives back to the public, not the public, sorry, like, their family, and just provide that support, because at least that's something we can control. We can help someone get better.
Like, we have therapy in Brunei. Therapy is free, and also schools. Like, we have counseling sessions in school, and NGOs like us, actually. Like, we can provide the care, we can provide being the listener for them.
So we're in the second segment, domestic violence. So my first question here is, what are the warning signs of domestic violence in a relationship, and how can individuals recognize them? So what are one of the common things that leads to domestic violence, or that shows that what you're going through is domestic violence? Personally, I do feel like if it's hurting you, it shouldn't be something that's educating you.
I would say if someone is going through domestic violence, you can definitely tell that there might be bruises, or they might be physically hurt. You can identify that, and I feel like those going through physical violence would separate themselves from others. So they might not interact with their friends a lot, and they might go further from their family because they're trying to hide what they're going through, and then they don't want to say it to they don't want to open up to their family, because I feel like one other thing, those going through this, they're too afraid to speak up, since for example, the abuser is their partner or their parents. Those are the people providing support for them. Like for example, if their partner is abusive and they have children together, she might not want to speak up since they want to protect the children from it. So,
I think one thing that I really, really want to bring up that was not discussed earlier was that cultural idea of jangan buka aib. So that is something I really, really cannot take for myself. People are always macam protect your family, protect jangan burukkan nama orang lain. Like they took care of you, they provided this for you, blah blah. So this is again in the context of family, because domestic violence can, there's no like one size fits all type of answer to define what domestic violence is, and whereas I'm just speaking right now in the context of family, people are always macam protect your loved ones, but then they weren't protecting me, so why must I protect them as well? But then people always have this idea where jangan buka aib is macam you cannot speak ill about them, you cannot criticize them, but that's not the case. I think that's really something we should kind of try to not to say change. I really do think that's something that needs to change, because when people are scared of speaking out, especially for, you are supposed to be protecting me, and I rely on you, but you are also the person like holding the trigger, like I would take a bullet for you, but you're the one holding the trigger. So then it's very very conflicting. So I think from there it really starts from like mindsets, where people need to understand like when is it time to take accountability and see and be open to like, oh, what I'm doing is totally not right. And that's definitely going to be hard in this situation, but it's hard to tell victims macam you have to be brave and stand up for yourself, and tell like that is bullshit. You can't tell victims to do that so easily, because they're already in such a vulnerable spot. They have so much on their plate. But I think just from creating a safe space for them, to me, is important. So whoever you meet, you don't know what they're going through. So always try to create a safe space for other people to open up to you.
You don't know what that 5 minutes interaction, how that can impact your life.
If everything like slow key slow down, like we can also confront and talk to the person so that they can know, oh, what you're doing is actually hurting me, or what you're doing is not okay with me.
Creating that boundary.
Yeah. So our third segment for this episode is to touch on verbal abuse. So we are going to be dividing this into two: how women can be experiencing verbal abuse in workplace. So, for example, women go through things like being called pet names or insensitive jokes. Women can also have been experiencing people spreading rumors about them or threats, or sometimes maybe the boss is like, if you don't do this for me, I'm not gonna give you your pay. So that's what I think is very common that women go through in workplace. So why is it hard for them to speak up about this issue?
Can I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So from what I see, I think because like most of they're getting like these jokes or called like names by like like older people in the workplace. So I feel like they have the fear to retaliate because they might lose their position, or they might be looked down on, since those are people that have higher position, and then they might fear that they're gonna get made fun of in the workplace for like speaking up about a older coworker, or they might fear that they're just weak, or they're just not strong enough. Calling people pet names are like normalized. If you feel um, triggered by it, people might make fun of you for being too sensitive.
Yeah, it actually comes from like the older generation where it's common for them to speak like this, but then again, it's not okay.
Yeah, it's
So, do you guys think this gender-based violence in workplace can be avoided to promote a healthier work environment? Do you guys think, are there like any other things that you guys think, oh, this should be practiced or stuff?
I mean, yeah, of course. I think Rina said it really well earlier, because why people don't speak up is because this is normalized. So that's what we have to do, like unnormalize it. Because like, she said earlier, people are scared of macam, blabe jo yan, ni ani pun kan complain. Like people will make fun of the victim, again, victim blaming, for being too sensitive, being too emotional, and then people will view them as like, oh, jangan kacau ya, karang ya complain pasal kau. We are the growing generation, we are the purpose generation. So whatever we are normalizing, we can bring that forward. And that would be macam calling out your friends or coworkers, like, kau buat ato rahya, hindi bisa ito. Like, making them have that awareness. So it's either just by, that's the easiest thing, calling out your coworkers, calling out whoever when you see something is wrong, making them realize. Maybe it's not going to make them change immediately, but they'll have like a second thought before doing it again. And aside from that, I guess companies, or whatever, schools, workplaces, they can have these like, I know people don't like attending these talks or whatever, but sexual harassment awareness like talks. Because I remember someone I knew attended one, and before this it was very like very biasa macam panggil your coworkers sayang whatever catcalling, but then apa macam like they would get annoyed by it, but it's just like oh biasa tah tu biarkan saja, and then it's only when they're like oh I learned in my course today apparently that is harassment and you can report that. So again, like if you have that awareness, if someone has that awareness, they can start something to change, and like again call like giving someone else the second thought to macam do something like that. So it really starts with these small steps.
It starts with one person.
It starts with one person, really.
So now we're gonna be touching on women against women. So for me, I think this issue actually starts from social media and from the culture, from the older generation again, and then the comparison that people are like comparing women, or even from an adult comparing their kids to this. So this actually like forms some sort of hatred of a woman to another woman, when actually women and women should be having each other's back.
Mm-hmm.
So I did mention of how I think that it's actually formed by our culture of like trash talking. So what do you guys think? Do you guys have any insights on this?
Yeah, so thank you for asking this topic. This is something people really don't become aware of, because we don't see girl on girl crime as something huge. It's just like dorang punya problem to biar dorang uruskan. But then for me growing up, oh my god, I was in high school like almost 10 years ago. So I don't know if that's still a problem today. Maybe the generation is better today. Maybe my generation was just a bit meaner.
I think you can say it, and then we can also say from our perspective.
Okay.
What happened?
Yeah, so I guess like me being, let's just say, this was my perspective. So whoever from high school wants to invalidate this perspective for me, please do. But for me, I was in a friend group of girls, and I always perceived myself to be the ugly friend. So I was very much insecure because my friends, my other girlfriends who were way prettier, got more male attention, and then that was like the basis of how I evaluated my self-esteem. It wasn't about how many friends I had. It was about like how much male attention I got. There were girls who were like, oh, she's very pretty, and then you would get jealous. And then I think there's that lack of reassurance.
Yeah.
Like really small microaggressions, I guess.
They're trying to find attention from like guys and all, so they would like bring down other girls for it. Yeah, they would say macam oh like I wear this better, especially like in front of guys and all macam. People still do that, so like comparison is still like a really big issue within girls. Like tiny things and like macam make it a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Like they tend to macam bring down or like embarrass other girls just to bring their self-confidence up, which is wrong.
So it does come back to like picking the right people to be friends with. Although it's just like one person, that one person can like come to two, and then like we can start like a whole group. So yeah, it just starts with. Okay. But then again, when like some of these women are like, oh, I don't want to seek male validation. I want to be my own girl. Sometimes people see this as like, oh, you're such a pick me, or like, why are you trying to act like, why are you trying to not be like other girls and stuff? And it can make that person think like, wait, what am I trying to do actually? Like, if I do this, salah. If I do this, salah. So, yeah, what do you guys think of those like terms, pick me and stuff?
Oh.
It's very common, right?
Yeah, it is very common.
For this, like, for in school and stuff, it's very common.
Like I understand that calling someone a pick me means that person is chasing male validation since they don't want to be like with like the other girls, and then but then I feel like it is also like a negative thing to say, as saying stuff like oh she's not like other girl or she's a pick me. It can further what do you call it, make the issue a bigger issue, since it would be usually girls are calling other girls pick me.
Yeah.
And then
You're
like
further encouraging that
yeah,
behavior.
further encouraging that if girls are this mean, maybe I should just seek male validation and like stay further away from like good friendships and all. So yeah, I do think it's like a really harmful thing to say, since it's not gonna bring any good to like the girl who's going through the issue. I feel like girls should like if they notice those behaviors in another girl, like seeking male validation and all, I think they should just provide support and like tell them that it's not something you have to have. Like like you can, like, basically giving support to those girls who think they need no validation.
Instead of like further shaming.
Instead of shaming them from it.
Like enhancing them really nicely, and also providing that support, providing that company to them, like also like boosting their own self-esteem.
Because I do believe like what these people go through, there's always like a reason behind it. There's always like why are they feeling this way? So yeah.
Yeah, like last time on another podcast with opinion. Check that out too. We also mentioned about this picnic, and it was me and Munira, one of our other members, and we did. I remember we talking about picnics. It could stem from them having super low self-esteem, so they seek for this validation, as we said earlier. And I also want to mention about you can build this validation yourself, not only from the people around you, but also from yourself. Like try to understand your feelings, try to validate your feelings, and also work on it. For example, if like that person is they have low self-esteem and they realize it's because they're not taking care of themselves properly. They're like sleeping late, waking up late, and that can be changed. That change, then we can change it from habit. From that, you can like, oh, actually, I can rely on myself. So that boosts your self-esteem, and they won't like become a pygmy in a way. They won't like look for this validation because they validate themselves. Like they know that their well-being is matter, so they take this action to take care of themselves, to stay better.
This was like this validation comes from friends. It can also come from you yourself. I do want to ask Syafina, since you said that your high school was like 10 years ago.
Thanks for the reminder.
She ends up really young.
Yeah.
Serious. I thought she was like.
Right.
I don't even know, but I want to guess it. Like, it's okay. Let's not.
We can guess and we can cut it out like.
Is it 10 years ago? I imagine like.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not that old.
When you were in high school, was like this woman against woman and like comparison, is it like common in your point of view back in high school or even now, wherever you work at?
I think before in high school it was definitely more common. But then as I grew up, I think like it was starting much when I was in sixth form where I started to have solid female friendships. And I'm not gonna lie, I think when I was in high school, like I said, I did search for that validation. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be not like the other girls. But then after getting like so much support from girls, having meaningful friendships for them, it started to not matter as much anymore. And because from there, I built my own self-esteem because there were so many supportive people around me. And then I think ever since then, I was just more, I don't notice a lot of the negativity because I'm out of that circle right now. Now I understand perception is projection. So what you want, you will see it.
Over here, if you're wondering where this beautiful location is, it's actually at Risk Cafe, the Riverside Ranch. Thank you so much, Risk Cafe, for sponsoring our vacation for today. Good drinks out of it. Yeah, very good drinks.
So how do we raise awareness for these women who experience assault or abuse?
I think it's like what we've been saying. It starts from one person. How do you raise awareness? If you see your friends doing it, call them out. Whether it's jeopardizing like your relationship or whatever, then I think it's from there you're gonna know the values, whether your values align with the people you are friends with. So don't be scared to speak out, whether it's for yourself. And if you can't speak out for yourself, do share what you are going through if you're able to someone else. So again, one thing, be aware, call people out. Don't be scared to call people out. I guess that's really what you can do first. That's the first step. And it's a really important first step because without them knowing, there is no awareness. And without action, it's like, okay, I know this thing, so what? So provide the help that you can. Be a good listener.
That I was like, oh, be the change in your community, be the change of what you want to see in the future.
Yeah.
Look for the change. You be the change.
Yeah.
Exactly. So treat people how you want to be treated. That's what I would always say.
So I do want to also give tips for the people who go through sexual or physical or verbal abuse. You can call Talian Harapan in 145, Talian Anak in 121 for child abuse or child neglect. You can also call Talian Kebajikan at 141 for domestic violence. You can also call the police at 993.
And these people will keep your information confidential. So yeah, you don't have to be scared to contact these people. They are your safe space.
There's always these people to contact. So after watching this episode, if you feel like it's happening to you yourself, do contact these people. So how can we continue to culture our community so that it is safe for women to open up and seek help?
I do. Wait, who was it? I think it was in the last episode, Marsha. She did mention that she goes around school
Yeah.
to talk about reproductive health, and I think we can do the same thing for sexual abuse and what to do. One of it is our article. One of it is our article. We talked about it as well, but also like that's an article, right? We wait for people to go there, but then also like we can go to these people and talk about it and nurture that culture of like creating a safe space again for women to speak up and seek help, and also like tell them that it's not a taboo. Like you can be comfortable with telling it to us. So that can be to your school counselor, as I said, like NGOs like us, and also like your parents, like your safe people.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to that, like really what she said, be the first person to open up conversations in your group if it's not already there. So I think before, maybe it's a bit more open now, but before in high school it was very much up. If you mention to a guy like, oh, I'm on my period, or if you even bring like a pad, everyone would be like, ee, like. But then now everyone's a bit more open, rightfully so. So it's like by starting these conversations, by normalizing them, by being more open to learning more information, that just because it's not comfortable to you, just because it's uncomfortable for you to listen, someone else is still going through it in real life. So that is the most you can go through, or the least you can go through for someone in raising awareness. So I guess that's how you culture. We kind of try to culture this awareness and change.
And I also want to say, like, I saw these YouTube and not TikTok videos of these parents like telling their children in a very cute way. They're like, oh, if around Igam you're this, you know what you this is what you're going to do. But they do it in this very like macam non taboo way. Macam oh kalau orang Igam you're ani, you mesti buat ani, you need to tell mama. And it's very I find that a very nice approach because you start small. You start them you create this awareness ever since they're a child, and then they will grow up with it. And when they grow up with it, they will start telling it to their peers. So it became a whole new culture, which is what we already have right now. But I would say, on my personal perspective, it's still limited. Like it's not openly talked about.
I think even though right now it's more open, it can always be better and it can always be
Can
more
always
open.
be more better.
We can always
It's like how we use words as well. I think maybe it's like when we talk about private parts, jangan macam malu as well. It's like, these are what you have, so these are things that you should know about yourself as well.
So it's also important we talk about like mental health with each other, like especially with friends and all, because that's like one way we can realize that we're going through these issues. Because sometimes we don't know how to identify the situation, and I think one way to identify it is it has a big impact on your mental health. So identifying that you have mental health issue might identify like the cause of it. So having like normalizing talks about this with your community, with your friends is really important as well.
We're like talking about it, like keep talking about it.
Because I feel like mental health isn't something people like enjoy talking about, especially since it's a negative like view. So I feel like it should be normalized since everyone is going through it, and it might help someone.
It sticks around negative like stigma.
But although it's like how hard it is to talk about, it is the reality of these people. So yeah, just be there for that person. So I think one of the main point, and I think like one of the quotes from us is to be the change and be the one that always goes. They will always.
Be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
It starts with us. It starts with you, and together we can be the change.